Hi, my fellow target individuals and patriotic Americans who are my friends and viewers of my YouTube channel. I'm going to be telling you how my weekend was because it wasn't great. I think I was having target individual issue. They were hitting my back, head, and neck with direct energy weapons. I was having tinnitus and I was feeling vibrations in my nervous system and my spine, especially around the head area and the neck. It was so weird, and I felt vibrations that correspond with the tinnitus on my head. I'm going to. Well, I can't tag people because of how my screen looks right now. That's weird. Now I'm experimenting with this. I'm trying to see if I can show you my screen. Uh, no. Trying to show my screen. It's not letting me show my screen to you guys. Oh well. Well, I'm going to be using YouTube on my station to show you some things. I need to drink something. My mouth feels dry because I've been taking Flexeril for my neck osteoarthritis that I think that I got from working too hard for years picking up heavy pieces of trash out of the creek, like pieces of buildings and other stuff like that. A lot of it was car parts, but it could also be the direct energy weapons that they hit my head with when they do V2K and spec telepathy. Now I'm going to be turning the lights off in order for you to see my screen better. Uh... I'm trying to show you my screen on my TV.
Out there get something like 90% of all the women. Why is it that these guys at the top have access to all of the women? Now, the reason why this happens is actually very simple. When you're finished with this video, it's going to completely change the way that you see women forever. So for most guys, this whole idea typically starts with confusion. And you probably looked around and you wondered, why do women only seem to notice the guys at the top? Now, you probably weren't angry about it. You probably just didn't understand. And at the same time, you probably feel invisible while other guys seem to be effortlessly seen. These guys at the top, they seem to get the women so incredibly easily. And so what happens is you get this sort of quiet frustration. And it's what many men in the modern world feel, especially in the modern world where women's hypergamous instincts are absolutely out of control due to the invention of the internet, dating apps, and stuff like that. And so what happens is a lot of guys are confused because they don't understand how it actually works. They don't understand the rules of the game. And so they are still basically invisible to women. Now, what typically happens is you have the next thing, okay, the next part, which is essentially this pattern of preference, okay? This is what most men seem to notice at some point. This is what we've all noticed at some point, which is that women seem to notice or pay attention to or give attention to only a small subset of men, okay? And so in all of our searching, we basically look for answers. We look deeper through time, through biology, through behavior, and we look from things like ancient tribes to agricultural roles, and even to modern dating apps. And what happens is essentially a pattern becomes visible. And what this pattern shows us is that women have always chosen, and that choice, okay, the thing that causes a woman to choose you or not, or to choose another guy, is essentially logic. It actually follows logic, and it follows logic that is older than language itself. And so women have this preference, and what they prefer, the type of men that they look for, is essentially men who can provide protection and also provision. Okay, and so what happens next is essentially this logic that women use to select men. It is called hypergamy. Okay, it is called hypergamous nature. And this is basically the instinct to seek partners who are of equal or higher value, whether it's socially, whether it is emotionally, whether it is biologically. And it is not a preference for wealth or fame like most guys think that it is. Okay, hypergamy does not necessarily select for wealth or fame. It's essentially an evolutionary radar. Okay, and this evolutionary radar is tuned for what? It is tuned for safety, it is tuned for stability, it is tuned for strength. And this filter isn't actually conscious, and it is not cruel, it is simply biology. Okay, at the end of the day, it all comes down to biology. Okay, it's not judgment, it is simply raw instinct. Okay, so what you have to understand is that essentially there are different roles. Okay, there are different roles that we play as men and that women play. And women want to know at the end of the day, because of this hypergamous instinct, is can a man protect and provide for me? In other words,
You better think about what you're trying to do to me.
I'm sorry about this stupid ass commercial. Usually commercials, you have to at least have 10, no, actually 15 to 20 minutes in order for you to get commercials on a YouTube video. I don't know why a 9-minute video or 6 to 9 minute video is being monetized.
does this man have confidence? Does he have stability? Does he have charisma? And it is not judgmental. It is simply instinct. Okay, it is raw instinct, raw primal evolutionary instinct or biological strategy that causes women to choose one guy over another. Okay, now what does this mean? What this means is that men and women have evolved with certain roles. Okay, men and women both have certain roles, and essentially what this means is that women have to be extremely selective when it comes to choosing a mate. They have to be very, very picky and very selective because they have so much that is riding on it. Okay, women essentially have one egg, whereas men have millions of you-know-what that they are basically designed from a biological standpoint to spread around. Okay, so women are designed with one egg, so they have to be very selective and very picky with the mates that they choose because they have that one single egg. They have to be very, very careful. Okay, whereas men, we are literally biologically designed to spread our seed far and wide. In other words, we are designed to basically be with as many women as we possibly can. Okay, that is how evolution designed us. That's how biology works. That's how our biology works. Okay, and so what this essentially means is that women have to protect the future, whereas men have to prove that they are worth choosing. Okay, this is the whole idea of hypergamy. Okay, men have to prove that they are worth choosing. Okay, so the woman's role, from a biological perspective, from an evolutionary perspective, is to select, whereas the man's role is to signal and compete. Okay, women select, men signal and compete. That is how it has always been, because a single egg means that women have enormous risk when it comes to selecting a mate. They have to select the right mate. They have to be sure that you are a man who is able to protect and provide. Okay, if you cannot provide, if you cannot give these two things, if you cannot protect her from threats, if you cannot provide, then she's most likely to choose other men who are more able to do that than you are. Okay, this is why women go for guys who are oftentimes arrogant. It's why they choose guys a lot of times who are criminals. It's why they choose the quote unquote bad boys, the risky guys, right? The guys who are rebellious, who seem mysterious and stuff like that, right? It's why they're really into vampires and billionaires and weird stuff like that. It's simply because these are the men who are signaling and competing and basically telling women that they are the ones to choose. That they are the men who women should select. Okay? And so essentially what you have to understand is that with this understanding there comes a choice. Okay? And you can either resent the system in the way that it works. You can be mad that the game is played like this, that these are the rules of the game. You can be upset about it. You can call it unfair. You can call it rigged. You can call it broken. Okay, like this guy here. So many of the guys end up in this situation where they're angry. They're upset. They hate the system. They hate the way that it's played. They hate the way the game's played. Or you can be the small percentage of men who adapt. You can be the guy who evolves, and you can choose to build the very traits that the filter, that the hypergamous filter was designed to find or to seek out. Okay, these are traits like charisma, these are traits like confidence, these are traits like stability, purpose. Because at the end of the day, hypergamy doesn't punish men, it rewards those who rise. Okay? So what's the key idea here? The key idea is very simple. It's that hypergamy isn't evil. It is how nature selects. Okay? And once you learn the rules, you can win. Okay? If you don't learn the rules, you will simply be filtered out. That's the harsh reality of it. It's the harsh reality of female nature. It's that if you do not learn the rules, if you don't understand how hypergamy works, if you don't understand these evolutionary filters, then you will be like the 80 to 90% of men out there who are simply filtered out, okay, who are invisible to women simply because they don't understand how the game works, or they do understand and they choose to be upset and angry about it rather than doing the things that they need to do in order to become the signal. So don't hate the filter, okay? Don't hate hypergamy. Instead, become the signal. Great spelling there. Become the signal, and you will be able to use hypergamy to your advantage. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and until next time, thanks for watching.
I don't agree with this man because hypergamy has caused women to literally commit genocide through eugenics against their own people of their own countries, ethnicities, and religions. You know why? Because most of the rich and powerful men are not even pure-blooded humans. They're human alpha draconian hybrids. David Icke will tell you what they are. Women should not be doing hypergamy or nepotism at all when getting men and when getting jobs. Because it's dangerous, because the most powerful, richest men on the planet are fucking evil pieces of shit. And they're not even completely human, they're human alpha draconian hybrids, and many of them are murderers, child abusers, and some of them are cannibals. This is what I hate about other women is nowadays is because they don't care about getting into a relationship with a man who's at least got morals as a person.
For as long as I can remember, I've had an interest in what some people condescendingly term conspiracy theory. You see, I was born November 22nd, the anniversary of
Women
John
should get
Kennedy's
into a relationship with men like
Every
David
year on my
Icke.
birthday, there's been televised specials on practically every channel talking about magic bullets,
Men who know
grassy
that there is an inhuman and very evil element running the world.
Even by the age of 10, this spoke to me. And of course, there were UFOs, the Illuminati, occult Nazis, organized satanic networks, fake moon landings, and CIA mind control programs. Hell, even if this is all bullshit, it was fun to read about. It was in 2000 that I first discovered David Icke's book, The Biggest Secret. In it, he writes about a global conspiracy, a hidden hand manipulating humanity's destiny through the shadows, using those who seem to be in power. And the goal of these shadows?
You see,
Nothing less than an Orwellian global superstate.
my country's women, you see, my fellow patriotic American women and targeted individual women, you should not get into a relationship with the people that this guy talks about.
Hey! Kev, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Good trip.
Because they'll wind up torturing and killing you and torturing and killing the children you'll have with them. Or groom them to be criminals
This is fantastic.
and stuff.
Someone
To
in
do evil stuff to
Hawaii
people.
actually painted this. This is what painting is. This is the original of the front cover of my last book, Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More. And I asked my great friend, an artist called Neil Haig, to paint this picture for me, with particularly those eyes. And that's humanity saying, no more, enough, no more little me, we're not having it anymore.
In 1991, David Icke didn't believe in secret shape-shifting lizard fascists. He was a television celebrity. After arthritis had ended a promising career in football, he'd become a broadcaster. But that all ended in one remarkable appearance on the Terry Wogan Show.
David Icke.
In a turquoise tracksuit, he'd announced that he was the son of God, and the world would be ending that year. It didn't, and Icke seemed destined to disappear beneath a typhoon of public laughter.
So it's quite funny, really. You know, 2,000 years ago, had a guy called Jesus sat here and said these same things, you would still be laughing. It's really, really funny that we've not really moved on that much.
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
But Icke wouldn't disappear. He began to write. And with a series of increasingly successful books, he began to outline his philosophy. Humankind was not in charge of its destiny. It was the unwitting prisoner of a race of shape-shifting lizards who occupied the roles in the highest echelons of society.
Don't get in a relationship with these types of men.
Secretly part of a reptilian, Satanist pedophile group who had been on this planet for centuries. People began to take notice of Icke, and today he spends most of his year preaching to amphitheaters full of fans. He's still making startling revelations, and recently he declared the moon to be a hollowed-out planetoid space station from which our minds are controlled. The lizard, its very own Death Star.
I thought I could skip irrelevant information.
Because there were people, when it started to come in, people who were kind of into my stuff up to that point, which was kind of regular fight. Well, it's a bit strange because it was all the way it was regular by a few people, but it was all kind of regular stuff. And then I came across with this stuff. And
Get out of the way.
Don't mention the reptiles. They'll just laugh at you again. I said, I know, but I've seen enough and heard enough to believe that it's real, and so I say it. I don't care about the consequences for me. Are you frightened? No, I'm not. I don't care, because the consequences for the world and my children and my grandchildren and everyone else's of humans not intervening in this process that's going on now ever more quickly, are that we are condemning our children and grandchildren, indeed ourselves. It's that close to a world that George Orwell so massively understated.
Can we have a look at where the work gets
Yes.
done? Where
Like
it
everything-
all happens?
This is where it all happens, and as you can see, it's really small.
It is
small. Because, you know, I look at my life, and I don't see my life as a life anymore. I haven't for a while. I see it as a job.
So this is the new one.
Yeah, this is
In
the
German.
this is the German version, isn't it? Look at the size of it.
yeah.
350,000 words. That, in one book, is the scale of information that has come into my life about these things. See, that is not theory.
We're
That is
living
evidence.
in a
Fact.
patriarchy
Struck you? 'Cause, I know
system,
it's a couple for me, but
an Illuminati
Robert Anton Wilson and
Yeah.
cabal
because it
that
was
is
fun
ran
and
by
it's all about
Zionist
points of interest together.
Jews
Sort of pointed me
that
in
are the
direction that
Elohim
wasn't really a
cult that Cliff
conspiracy
Eye talks
theorist
about,
saying anything. He just-
that worship
he's talking
Anunnaki,
to people together
extraterrestrials,
I never saw.
called the
Talking
Alpha
to people that
Draconians,
never occurred to me, which turned me to-
Gray Aliens,
Yeah. That's
and the
that's
Anunnaki from
just
Nibiru.
of my work and what you need to do to
And
understand connect the dots.
these
See,
men who are human extraterrestrial hybrids are misogynistic and sexist pieces of shits because they're predatory and parasitic pieces of shits.
and you can see that something's not
And
right.
when
When
you go-
connect the dots between apparently unconnected people and situations,
I'm gonna just let him talk,
organizations, that's when the
and I'll
tapestry
say the
appears,
rest.
and you go, whoa. So that's what's happening.
when you
David told us that his first moment of
Okay.
enlightenment had occurred when a voice entered his head while shopping with his son on the seafront.
This is the news agent I told you about, where basically it all started. I was walking along here, and I walked in this door, and turned to where the Gareth was reading his Steam Train books, and this is where it happened, just the other side of this door, where I'm like, what's going on? Go and look at the books on the far side. What? And that's where it started, 1990, March 1990. And I never thought it was going to lead where it has, but it has. Yeah.
Well, it was a great beginning. Platform fun.
In simple terms, there is a predator race which take a reptilian form. They're feeding off humanity. They've turned humanity into a slave race. They demand human sacrifice. That's where Satanism comes in. They feed off
It's
human
not
energy,
Satanism,
particularly
it's
feed off
Zionism.
the energy of children.
David's latest revelations have been about the moon.
he thinks it's Satanism, but it's actually Zionism that's doing this shit. Jewish supremacy,
Probably a hollowed-out planet.
Anunnaki, Elohim
Because from
cult
the moon,
supremacy.
that the nefarious Illuminati manipulate the collective human mind, warping our perception of reality.
I'm saying it's broadcasting something that it acts as a blocking frequency that stops us seeing and perceiving things that we would normally perceive. That is creating what I call the moon matrix or the Saturn moon matrix, and it's basically having the effect of the fake reality in the Matrix movies.
I guess that makes David the Isle of Wight's very own Neo. According to Ike, the Isle of Wight is a world within a world, with Freemasonry and Satanism at its center. The ancient ley line scoring the landscape make it a powerful spiritual hub. I think the plan is he's going to show us this stone, which is part of a old stone circle. The main one where
Braden kind of looks like my neighborhood, West
on
Virginia.
a regular basis.
place here then where